Hope you guys all had a nice Thanksgiving and look forward to some nice holidays to come. Let's see what we've got. Oh, we have our local, unofficial maybe, historian going to be presenting to us, Eric Drew. Eric's always got a fount of information over there. Here long before Healdsburg was cool. Tell us about those times. So before we get started there though, Talia, anything you'd like to bring up to the meeting before we talk to Eric?
Yes, well, first of all, good morning, Healdsburg. Thank you everyone for attending today. Just wanted to remind everyone tomorrow is our tree lighting in the plaza. So we hope you'll join us from 5 to 8. We'll start with a rabbi and a local rabbi that's doing a little bit of a conversation. And then we're going to have Santa come in. We'll do the tree lighting and have a really big celebration. I can't give away all the secrets because we have lots of surprises for you, but we hope you'll come down with friends and family and colleagues. It should be quite large. We've gotten a lot of calls even from outside of the city for people who are wanting to know what time they can attend. So I just wanted to remind everyone, and I hope to see you there.
Great. I want to welcome Ellen Mitchell, our mayor, and Ariel Kelly. Thanks for attending. And of course, who actually runs things down there. Okay, let's turn to Eric Drew. Eric, I understand you're going to give us a little summary of commercial downtown local development progress. With Mike on that, but
yeah, past, present, and future. Let me share my screen here. You see all see my screen?
Yes.
I've got it.
So I'm going to start. There's probably one of the most interesting slides is the very last one, which talks about the drivers of Healdsburg commercial over the next 3 or 4 years. But I'm going to start with a little bit of history here. This is just a little bit about me, that I've been a real estate broker in town since 1975. I'm going to talk about a brief history from 1857 forward, the changes in the past 3 years, just some of the transitions, details and gossips and Q&A. Some things I can discuss, some things are still confidential in the different categories of retail, food, liquor, office, and industrial. And then the last slide will be the drivers, the developments and drivers of change over the next 3 years. What's past is prologue. It's very important that we understand. There's one slide in particular that tells a lot about the history, where we've been and how we've gotten to today. Healdsburg was a very, very vibrant tourist and hospitality town. The Sodiomi House, which you see on the right of this slide, opened. The Harmon Heald sold lot 9 in March of 1857, and the Sodiomi House Hotel opened for business 1 year later in 1858. The Union Hotel opened in the early 1860s and was the second 3-story hotel in the 300 block of Healdsburg. A lot of the pictures that you see from the third and fourth quarter of the 19th century were taken from the upper windows of the plaza. The Union Hotel is now approximately where Dry Creek Kitchen is today, and the Sodiomi House is approximately where Troubadour, where Mustache used to be, and where Sean and Melissa are opening Troubadour. Healdsburg, I'm going to read this. After fording the Russian River, which during the dry season is scarcely large enough for a trout stream, we passed through a wild and uncultivated tract of country and arrived at Healdsburg about sunset, where we stopped overnight. This is quite a business place considering its remoteness, and its hotel is kept by a man that knows how. I was surprised to notice posters on the fences announcing a dramatic performance. What do you imagine? The drama announced Uncle Tom's Cabin, creating a furor at the present time. This was San Francisco Daily on July of 1865, right at the end of the Civil War. And the live performance was at the Truett Theater on Center Street, about where Barn Diva is today. We had a very, so this is kind of backs up the thesis that I have that the first quarter of the 21st century is much more like the third and fourth quarter of the 19th century than any time in the 20th century. A little perspective, these next two slides tell a lot about what's going on today. 1856, the little 1,000 with two-story J.C. Penney's. We had a 1,000-seat vaudeville theater with a full fly loft. We had 2 3-story hotels and a 3-story city hall. I wanted to spend a little time on this one because this is what set the stage for Healdsburg's transformation. This is the 1983 downtown Healdsburg. The key point is that this slide represents 23 years after the freeway bypassed our town. And we transitioned from having about a dozen service stations within 5 blocks of the Plaza to having virtually none. The site where the story hotels were already torn down. They only lasted 100 years. And the red blocks are buildings that were torn down after 1983, setting the stage for Healdsburg's third 3-story hotel, which was Hotel Healdsburg, which opened around 20 years ago. This slide is just to show the importance of understanding that it is all about change. Larry Wilson came to town and bought 80% of the buildings, and the list and this is his chart of rents on what we now know as the Matheson. And the chart on the left is our brief history of the restaurants that were in that block on the south side of the Plaza. I included this just for fun. The Chamber of Commerce has been talking about tourism since 1981. This is 40 years ago. We had an awful lot. I ran the Chamber Visitors and Tourist Committee in that time. We set up quite a bit. Everybody felt that the biggest thing Healdsburg needed from a driver of our commercial business was hotels and hospitality. You'll be able to read this if you get the recording. This is just more of the south block where the Matheson is. I want to, this is a very a new and very popular book amongst retailers. This just came out as an update on for the post-COVID economy. Steve Dennis is kind of a retail guru, and he talks about a lot of things that are creating successful retail. He really makes a big point of emphasizing the difference between buying versus shopping and creating memorable shopping experiences. Creating memorable is arguably the most important essential in any of the 8 remarkable elements of or essentials of remarkable retail. The much of what passes for experiential is merely gimmicky and ultimately is just a slightly better version of mediocre. Healdsburg, buying versus shopping is kind of a big theme that's going on. The Amazon has won all of the buyers. If you are out to buy something that's a task and is mission focused, and you can do it fast, easy, and delivered on Amazon. Shopping, Steve Dennis talks a lot about physical retail is not dead. Boring retail is dead. And he repeats all the time about creating a memorable experience in the retail and amongst the shopper. And I really encourage those who are actually running retail stores to take a look at his book and realize that shopping is more emotional and is based on an entire experience, not just a product. So I want to get down to some the whole bunch. I'm going to bounce around a little bit here to show you what I'm talking about, and then get into more Q&As and what's going on, and then I'll close with what's going on, in my opinion, that's going to drive commercial business and in Healdsburg. And I divide commercial into several components. I'm going to come back to some of these. So retail, these lists are properties, are businesses that have transitioned over the last 36 months. And I've listed them all. Everybody is going to be interested in specific details, but I listed them all just to give you a sense of the magnitude of transition. Not all caused by, in fact, probably most of it is not caused by the pandemic, but these are all, this is retail, this is office, and these are not meant to be complete and accurate. They're just my adding up lists. These are industrial. These are currently vacant. This is my last list. We'll go over that more later, but I wanted to go over what people relate to. Well, let me just do a few before we get into Q&A and specifics. Let's talk a little bit about the industrial. Is probably the strongest component of COVID recovery. There's very little vacant space. The most recent one was Silver Oaks, General Dynamics. A lot of you know where Redwood Moving and Storage used to be. General Dynamics leased the space for expansion and then decided not to expand. I think you all know that General Dynamics has high-end R&D, research and development in the aerospace business, and in about 70,000 square feet of space within 5 blocks of downtown. When they relinquished their space, we had multiple interested parties. Silver Oaks ended up leasing it. 20 Mill Street, where Encore used to be, is under current negotiations. But the industrial side has been very strong. The office has been the weakest side of the commercial district, but there's been some real highlights. Craftworks opened up before the recession, before the pandemic, and has been doing great. And that's a classic conversion of what traditionally has always been classic retail to leasing, to doing a different kind. Another one, the Daily Method, having experience type uses rather than traditional retail. We'll get back to some specifics and talk about SoFi and some other drivers of office space, but we'll get back to that. Retail is obviously probably the most visible and has the greatest impact on downtown. And so, I thought we'd talk a little bit about retail, because that's where most of the questions of what's going on from a commercial point of view, the most questions I get are what's going on in retail. So I think that the two things that are most interesting is the 300 Center Street, which is the northeast corner of Matheson and Center, which has been boarded up, and that is going to be Phil Aneker is doing Flying Goat Coffee 2.0. He'll be a totally different kind of place. He hopes to be opening soon. The old JCB wine shop on the other opposite corner of Center and Plaza. That building was owned by Nancy Warren for 40 plus years, and she turned 90 years old and decided to sell it. We sold it to Tim and Mary Louise Bucher, Tim was raised on the family dairy in West Side Road, went off to make his fortune and came back and opened Trattori Winery, or farm and winery out in Dry Creek. And this will be kind of a home for his wine and olive oil brands. He'll be getting started on that shortly. And so I thought maybe it'd be good to open up to some Q&A before I get into my last slide, which is kind of what I consider the drivers of commercial real estate over the next 3 years, such as Mike Brennan's Mill District is one. But any questions in terms of what's going on?
225 Healdsburg Ave, Antique Harvest. What's the fate of that?
225.
Yeah.
I'm drawing a blank on which one that is.
Antique Harvest properties.
I'm sorry. Yes, that property sold to the group that owns Hotel Healdsburg.
Oh.
I'm sure they bought it for future potential and for protection.
Eric, can
Cersei Shear did put that together.
Eric, can you unshare for a minute so we can see if people are raising their hands, etc.?
And would we be able to get a copy of this deck, Eric?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
It's also recorded for us.
Yeah, I'd love to have the deck so I could share it.
Uh-huh.
All right, anybody else have any questions for Eric out there?
I got another quick one. I noticed on West Side Road, Little Saints got a garden planted out there in front of a home that some friends of ours own. Did that property sell, or is that leased for that garden?
On West Side Road, right across from Matrix Winery.
Yes.
That property is owned by Jeff and Laura Ubin, who you might recognize as the people that purchased Shed. They are Little Saints landlord in essence, and very involved in the new opening of Little Saint.
When is that supposed to happen, Eric?
Their website says winter 21, which means between December 21st and January 1st, but they are having a lot of, I'm guessing it'll be before the end of the winter in 22.
Mhm.
But if you look at Indeed and in LinkedIn, you'll see that they are doing a lot of hiring. So they're gearing up for opening.
Ariel says their current opening is planned for January 17th.
Yeah,
But
I'm
I know
sorry.
they just had a job fair and obviously everyone's having to.
Yeah. Yeah, some of the things that aren't happening very well, the old Bear Republic, and this is just the Bear Republic, the landlord, Barry Swenson, is going to start gearing up. They did not do anything in terms of fixing the building. It needs a lot of fixing. But that's a good example of the restaurant, the business, in the 40 years I've been in town, where the Matheson is, there's been probably, half a dozen restaurants. And I think the Matheson is going to probably be there for 40 years. The Bear Republic, that building was built about 34 years ago. Bear Republic has lasted 28 years in that building, but they were the fourth restaurant in that space. But those,
But you kind of have to admit, some of those were, when the original one was put together by a bunch of winery guys that
right,
thought it'd be
right.
fun to have a restaurant, that had a short life to start.
Right, and then a Czechoslovakian or Hungarian restaurant. Real good passion from the owners, but Healdsburg didn't support that, and that all opened before the hotel. Bear Republic made it work with a vacant lot next door.
Do you have a tentative date for Lo and Behold where Mateo's was?
Lo and Behold is going to be opening soon. They've posted their liquor license. The time has lapsed, so they should be ready. They should be fully. Haven't heard a specific date, but they're good operators. They'll do a good job.
Yeah.
Laura said January when I spoke to her yesterday. So
Okay.
soon.
Yeah, it's hard to appreciate how far this, it sounds like, oh, well, we've been going in and out, but it's hard to appreciate how far this town's come since 75 when Eric moved here. And actually I moved in 76.
Yeah.
The place was nothing. It was 13 bars and 13 churches, and that's about it.
Yeah, right. Well, and you go back to that one slide, that 1983 slide of downtown Healdsburg, and you realize that the freeway bypassing us opened in November 11th of 1960. So that's been 60 years to recover. We didn't have our first real buildings rebuilt downtown until Hotel Healdsburg came in 40 years after the freeway bypassed us. The building that the Barbieri family and Peter Van Alia own, where Willie's Seafood is today. They only own it. Peter Van Alia and Bob Barbieri owned a chain of service stations, including a service station on that site. And they didn't know what to do with it because it was badly contaminated. So they built a building on it. And that's, and there was a service station across the street. It's taken it took a long time to transition from an automobile based community back to a tourist based community, which is what we were in the third and fourth quarter of the 19th century.
Eric, as far as that industry clusters, just in terms of economic development, have you seen over the years, I know SoFi tried and others, but any industry that would be successful here in Healdsburg as we look to attract and retain businesses?
Well, it's an interesting thing. SoFi is one example. General Dynamics is another. There's a whole bunch of them. Max Machinery, E&M Electric, all of these great industries, job drivers, high-end employees were never came here because of recruitment or because there's something there. They came here because of individual people. General Dynamics is here with 200 high-end paid employees because of Alan Judy Voigt bought a 100-acre ranch in Geyserville in the 70s and started building a business. E&M Electric is here because Mario Diaz, when he left Cuba, came out here and started an electrical company, and now there's 4 generations there. Max Machinery, John Max was looking for a place to do his engineering and found an abandoned bowling alley up on the north end of town and started Max Machinery. World-class business. If those who don't know Max Machinery really should, but it's a world-class business. It was not attracted it was not something that Healdsburg went out and attracted an industry. It was people that grew, and have some of the few examples of things that Healdsburg attracted, well, what's a good one? People that don't know that Fairchild Semiconductor built one of their early silicon wafer chip manufacturers here in Healdsburg. That was attracted because Healdsburg had a considerably below market rate electrical fee structure. And they built a 100,000 square foot silicon chip plant here in Healdsburg. When the technology made that plant outdated, it sold to China, and the entire plant was packed up and shipped to China. And that's now that's over there on what's that, 33? I think it's 33 Healdsburg Avenue, where Max Machinery is now,
Yeah.
where Oliver Max's business is.
What I've seen in the industry is just what you've been talking about, like Alan Judy coming up with Versatron, eventually getting General Dynamics up. But it seemed like, at least in the beginning, we were good for the smaller research and development. And then when the company went into actual production and it got larger, we just didn't have the space for it. Looks like
right.
Actually added some space, like you've done, for General Dynamics. But we're still, I think, somewhat limited in that. Would you agree?
Yeah, right. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. We don't have, we don't have, the good space for people to expand or change. There's just not, right now, if somebody needs X, let's call it 6,000 square feet. They've got one option to look at in Healdsburg and 8 in Windsor and 10 in Airport Boulevard, so they just have way more options for whatever their next steps are. And these are, 15 minutes down the freeway is nothing from a business point of view. But, you look at even SoFi was not attracted by Healdsburg. SoFi was attracted by the COO, McPherson, what was her name?
Sandra O?
No. The COO lived in Fountain Grove and was commuting to their headquarters in Presidio. And they were in the middle of establishing an outpost in Austin, Texas. She came up and found that Gallo and Constellation had just vacated 10,000 square feet, and was ready to move in literally in 60 days. She invited the CEO, the founder, Michael, what's his name? I'll think of his name in a minute. And they fell in love with the upstairs of the shed, and they had their Christmas party at the shed and decided to lease it, and were up and running because they were able to operate in 10,000 square feet. They were a fast growing company, and it just happened to be because Sonia McPherson lived in Fountain Grove and didn't want to commute to Austin, Texas. And there was space available.
So I guess that's something I'd like to see the city and chamber work on in the future, if possible, if we know those things, just having a conversation about infrastructure, workforce housing, transportation,
Right.
Some of those things that are going to impact the business. And I just have one last question, because you and I talked about this, Eric, but for everyone's knowledge, what's the average price per square foot around the plaza?
That's a highly variable number. On the plaza, you're looking at between $350 a foot and $10 a foot. And it depends a lot on the size, location, condition. JCB was paying $15 a square foot, but on that building, that was half of it was rent and half of it was marketing for an iconic location. But the rates around the plaza depend so much on size, specific location, current condition of it. The old Ralph Tingle's old restaurant has a $500,000 of installed restaurant upgrades done by a park tenant. So a restaurant tenant might pay something for that and pay a premium to get that, whereas a straight, a home furnishing or a clothing store wouldn't pay.
Talking about Ralph's Bistro side or the Matheson side? It's obviously Ralph's Bistro, or what we probably think of as a Brass Rabbit, right?
Yeah, right. But I want to share again just a minute and talk a little bit about what's happening that will be driving the next. We talk about Mill District a lot, but if you don't mind, I'm going to share again. Because the next 36 months, there's just an awful lot going on that is going to, in my opinion, have a huge effect on all aspects of commercial real estate. Enzo Village will be starting their vertical construction right away. They are already 95% pre-committed for a very high end. If you haven't seen it, I encourage you to go on to their website. Mill District is currently marketing or seeking a developer for a 53-room world-class boutique hotel. If Mike is still on, I think they're hoping that will get up and running by 2023. Mike, is that optimistic? The Mill District is 140 townhomes. It'll be in the 1 million to 6 million range. And as Mike indicated, they are marketing it at $1,500 to $2,000 per square foot. Madrona Manor is going changed hands last year and is going through a dramatic upgrade. They'll be reopening in the spring. Honor Mansion is partnering, the new owners of Honor Mansion, they're partnering with Mayakama Golf Course, and it's going to be the kind of the Healdsburg outpost of the Mayakama Golf Course. That'll be opening in 2022. Shed will be opening soon as the Little Saint. They have great plans. They have great talent behind them, and they have the money to make it happen. Duchamp has permits to expand from 6 rooms to 20. That could happen probably next year. Charlie Palmer and Chris have full approvals to build a 108-room hotel in the old lumber yard at the north end of town, called the North Village. The Montage residences, the first 14 of 66 are under construction. You drive up there, you'll see them. They are selling in the 4.5 to 6.5 million. Foley Farmers Market is, I think, should be finishing the final design review after what, 20 years of design review, but should be finishing it later this early. I think from what I hear by, and Jeff can probably add to this, will be finishing by late summer, all the plans, and start construction 23. And the North, H4 had obtained conceptual approval a couple of years ago before the moratorium was put in place. I don't know that they have, I'm not aware of any plans that they have to actually build it yet, but that would be a 3- and 4-story addition to the Hotel Healdsburg conglomerate. And this is just what is out there and basically approved and going on. It's a lot to happen in the next 3 years, and it's all very high end.
H4 is on what is now the parking lot that used to be the gas station there.
It's a parking lot and the old Coldwell Banker building.
Yeah, right. Yeah, got it. Okay. Well, we're getting short on time. Any other questions anybody has for Eric before we let him off the hook?
How about the fate of our movie theater, the Raven? And you'd indicated several months ago that you had a couple people looking at it. Is anything getting...
There are still a couple of people looking at it. The number one, the long-term owner, the second generation owner, passed away 6 months ago, and the current owner, is trying to get her feet on the ground and doing a great job. The question from a tenant's point of view: can Healdsburg support a 4-screen theater? And from the landlord's point of view, it's the same thing. It's the same thing. The last theater had some real difficulties even before the pandemic, selling tickets, getting people in there. So we're hoping that there are ongoing conversations with 2 different parties, but it's difficult.
But I think we're in a good space for that, actually. I know the pandemic created a shift in the dynamic there, but it puts us in a position to figure out what maybe that new look for the movie theaters, especially in small towns like this, goes forward.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Well, thank you, Eric, for all of your knowledge and information there.
Thank you.
Let's shift over to Evelyn. You got anything for us from city?
Well, you kind of Eric outlined a lot of the stuff that's going on in the city. And of course, that all, the city itself, staff itself has to work a lot on those projects too. But more importantly, I think right now is the fact that we're having our tree lighting ceremony. I see Mark Themig is on the line here, and maybe he could remind everybody of that a little bit. I know Talia did, but we're excited about that, being able to get back together and celebrate. We also have our senior dinner on Sunday at the Villa. So that's come back. There's going to be several options where they can sit inside and eat, and as well as pick up food for if they want to be able to take it home and eat that way. So from a safety perspective, I think some people get concerned about sitting in a room together and eating. So we've got those things going on. We have our last council meeting of the year on Monday. It's going to be a long one. We're expecting quite a bit of participation from the community, as well as people from not inside the community, but who have comments for us. So we'll see how that goes. We'll choose our mayor, vice mayor for next year, our committees, our meeting dates. So this is kind of our housekeeping meeting, if you will. So.
Great. All right. Well, thank you very much, Evelyn.
And
Thank you.
Evelyn, on that note, thank you so much on behalf of the business community for the great work that you did this year as mayor. You were, and yes, everyone's clapping. You're incredibly supportive and really helped us get back on our feet after the pandemic, and we're a great partner. So thank you.
I thank
Yeah.
you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, you've obviously had a year which has brought a lot of challenges, which you might not necessarily expect, and you've done a great job in navigating that for the city and the city council. Well, thank you.
2 more years. 2 more years.
Yeah, right. I don't know if Evelyn would go with that, but I.
Thank you. I love the support and really appreciate you saying that. Thank you.
Jeff, you got anything for us?
I have a couple of updates, but maybe real quick since the mayor teed it up. I saw Mark pop up and then pop back. Anything you want to add, Mark, about the events coming up? Because I imagine you're on site and using a Zoom background. I know your team's been working like crazy, so I want to give you a chance to share any details if you like.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, Mayor and City Manager. So we're excited to kick off our first official community holiday event. We've been talking about this for a few years, and we've got Geyserville Tractor Show, Calistoga Tractor Show. So we're trying to come up with kind of how we could develop an event that was Healdsburg focused and focused on our community, but also benefited the larger tourism industry and our restaurants and hotels. We came up with Mary Healdsburg in collaboration with the Chamber. It's been great working with Talia and Jessica, and the financial support from the Hotel Tourism Improvement District. They're providing about $35,000 to support this weekend's event. A big chunk of that is going to our first ever Plaza Christmas tree. We did our mock lighting last night. It's kind of cool. You got to come on Friday. But also we're incorporating Hanukkah this year, which we haven't in the past in other activities. And the city has commissioned its first artwork installation. A local metal artist is actually fabricating a Hanukkah that will be part of the Hanukkah ceremony on Friday night. So things kick off at 5 o'clock with a welcome and the Hanukkah ceremony, and then Santa arrives at 6, tree lighting at 6:15, and then all through the night there'll be food. The Kiwanis are going to do glühwein. If you've never had glühwein, it's a traditional European drink. It's actually very delicious, I might say. I might have had it a few times. And things will wrap up about 8 o'clock. I have been talking to a few of the businesses, and they said things are going strong downtown. They're excited that it's this weekend. And so we're excited to have everyone. So please come down.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark. So yeah, it's I'm excited. I've certainly got to see something I knew but didn't fully appreciate, is the way this community can put together some pretty amazing events. So I know that was all on hold for a while, but I get nervous every time I go down there and see cranes installing trees and whatnot, but it all seems to work out. So.
Oh, no, it's just been us on ladders, Jeff.
It's been what?
It's totally compliant. It's just been us on ladders, a group of us just crawling up trees. No worries.
No liability there.
I've spent enough of my adult life around municipal risk management professionals that I know that every time we start something like that, they're just all around the world, they get nervous and start sweating. But to the best of my knowledge, it went seamlessly. So nobody tell me if that wasn't true. Just a couple of other things I'll add. I'm excited about the weekend, and the mayor gave you a heads up on some things going on. I know the business community is interested in monitoring and the project home key application we have pending for acquisition of the L&M Hotel for shelter and transitional housing facilities. We do not have word back on that application yet, but we should by the end of next week. We are sort of planning as if it will be approved, because if it is, we have a lot to do in terms of continuing outreach, continuing to develop plans and documentation, community meetings, of course, and then ultimately an item that would come back to the city council most likely in January. That's not to say it will happen, but we don't have the luxury of waiting and then building a plan. So our team's working really hard to connect with businesses, and I want to extend that invitation to people who have questions or concerns or suggestions to please let us know, and we'll try really hard to be available for that conversation. When I say the team, that includes the city and city staff, but also folks from Reach for Home, which would be the operator. For instance, I know some of the board members from Reach for Home have really been on the front lines of reaching out to businesses because many of them already have relationships with the neighbors. So it's a team effort, but I get a lot of questions about what's the status, and the status is we don't know yet. But we think we made a very strong application, and we're working hard to do what we need to do to get that community conversation rolling in advance of hearing.
Just before you move on, Willie, did you have a question?
I'll let Jeff keep going, then I'll ask. Thank you.
Okay.
Just a couple other quick things for me. We had this is a real estate issue too, and I really appreciated Eric's update, which was very informative for me. Is that council had a conversation last week, I think, was it just last week, 2 weeks, on cannabis policy and potential options for permitting cannabis businesses that largely focused on retail, but there were also conversations about labs or manufacturing. I'm sure you all appreciate that this is the beginning of probably a long journey to develop a policy and implement a policy. I feel pretty confident saying nothing's going to be open in 2022 anywhere, probably beyond that. This will be a community conversation. It was just the beginning, but kind of a big deal. And I know it's been a long time coming. It was on my to-do list when I got here, was to help the council begin the process of having that conversation. So that did start. It's recorded. If you didn't see it and you're curious, feel free to watch the Zoom. It was fun. And then a couple other things that are on the agenda for this coming Monday. Mayor Mitchell is right. It's going to be a long meeting. I feel like we were hurtling toward the end of the year with a lot going on around here. So the update, this is also coming out of Mark's shop, the update to our parklet program. We were directed to come back with a program that would outlast the pandemic and have a proposal to do that. So if you're interested, hopefully you've been involved in the many meetings our staff has had with the community on that. And also an extension to our lease with the Taman Group for the operation of the villa. This is of interest, I think, to a lot of people, and I'm not sure if people are aware of this, but the Taman Group has notified us that they will be transitioning out. However, they were gracious enough to give us an extra 6 months, essentially. So we'll be asking the city council to approve that. That gives us time to figure out what the future operations of that building look like without disrupting existing reservations and all of the community events that happen there. So I feel good about that, and it's a relatively straightforward action, but I know it is likely to generate some questions about what's the future of that thing, of that place. The other distinction I'll make is this is a lease for the villa, not the golf course. I know there's been some conversation about what's the future of the golf course. We don't have anything in front of us that would change the structure of the golf course at this time. So I know there's been conversation and chatter, but I just want to clarify these are two separate documents, and that's what we'll be considering at this point. So a lot more going on. I could go on, but I won't. So happy to take questions.
Willie?
Jeff, with concern to water, and you speak to where we're at with the investigation for additional wells, as well as the reclaimed water project, getting water back into town.
Yeah, great question. We'll actually add to, I've been doing updates on water supply and COVID at the beginning of each meeting, and we're going to put together a couple slides on that for this coming Monday. There's really two things we're pursuing pretty aggressively. There's more, but there's two big ones. One is expansion of our recycled water system into town. That's a project you've all heard about for a long time. not necessarily transformative in terms of our water supply, but would allow us to save millions of gallons on irrigation of public facilities every year. And then the second, as Will mentioned, is Aquifer Storage and Recovery. ASR is the acronym I didn't know until I did. This would be groundwater wells that allow us to tap into groundwater, which is not part of our water supply right now, but also to return water when you don't need extra water to the aquifer. So it's a pretty neat and increasingly common strategy for adding resilience to your water supply. We currently have a consultant under contract doing some engineering and prep work to figure out exactly how the aquifer storage and recovery project would work, where to do it, what approvals we'll need, a little bit of the design work. But we're also, there will be something on, I just signed some documentation yesterday. We'll have something on the council agenda this Monday. We are really aggressively pursuing both state and federal funding for those projects. That's going to be critical. They're massive in terms of cost. And we've already taken such a terrible hit to our water fund because everybody did such an amazing job saving water. But it's a really good time. There is state money out there. Just yesterday, I had a meeting. We are scouring the federal infrastructure package, which appears to have a lot of money that could help with this. So I think right now we have about 4 different grant applications pending, and we'll provide that detail on Monday, and we're going to continue to push that. And I'd love to continue the conversation to see if there's ways that you can all help us and using your influence and your connections to kind of spread the good word on that. But it's going to be a little bit of a slog. The federal programs, for instance, it's all just legislation right now, and the federal agencies haven't really stood up those grant programs. So we're waiting on some of it, but I'm pretty hopeful. I think this could be a confluence of need and opportunity at the same time and help us get some millions, which is what we'll need to get those projects done.
And the expansion of the water system piece, that's the bringing recycled water over for irrigation?
That's correct. It's getting it fully into town so we don't. The trucking program was a great solution for one summer, but it's not a great solution for all time. So this would allow us to bring it into town and directly bring it to, Rec Park, the high school, the golf course, the cemetery. And if we do that, we would definitely look to have a public available filling station or something like that where residents could tap into that water. They could kind of do it now. It just isn't practical. So to have something in town, we would hope to be part of that.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, anybody else have any questions for Jeff? If not, Talia, anything you have as far as closing remarks?
No, thank you. Not right now.
All right, well, again, thank you everybody for participating in these meetings every month. I think they're great. It's one of those things that you can have in a town this size that you're not going to see someplace else, where you have this contact with all the people at the city and all the other kind of people in the community that are involved in trying to make things happen. And we really appreciate your participation. So on behalf of the chamber, I want to wish you all happy holidays and hope to see you out there this weekend at the tree lighting ceremony.
See you tomorrow.
Thanks again, Talia and Jessica. You guys just done an awesome job in making this happen, especially through all the pandemic and this new format that we've been using. I don't know if we'll ever get back into in-person meetings, but it's been great because I think it does open it up to so many more people.
Yes, definitely.
Thanks,
Thank you
everybody.
all.
Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Thank
Mark.
you.
Great job.